Welcome back everyone to the Hello World Guy, and this is episode number 3 of the series in which we are making an infinite runner using Unity's visual scripting. In this video we are going to add obstacles to our game that we can jump over, and that would be really nice. So yeah, let's get started doing that. Now in order to actually add obstacles, the first thing I will do is right click here, create a 2D sprite square called obstacle. Just call it obstacle, and then what I can do is make it something like red. Then you might also want to increase its scale to 1.5 and 1.5 because you know just that feels kind of better. Anyways, once you have done that, what I can do is I can move it down on the y, something like negative 2.5 5, not that 3 2 25 no, really 3. All right, so just place it on the ground, make sure that it is on the ground and not like in the air. And then what you can do is we can make sure that it has got a box collider component on it, box collider 2D. Now make sure that it is not visible in the game, just push it as far back as you can. And yeah, once you have done that, what you can do now is actually get started adding a script to this. Now if you remember, for the player we added in a script machine and then an actual graph. For this we can do the same, we can add in a script machine here, really easy. And for this we can choose a graph, but we can create a new graph here, create a new visual scripting script graph and call this one obstacle. Then what we can do is select our obstacle, and then we can drag this graph in here. And for the title, well, we will set that in here. So for the title I'm just going to say obstacle, and for the summary, handles obstacle logic. All right, now as a starter, what I want to do is I want to this obstacle to move to the left. So in order to do that, what we can do is we can first of all, let me just go under my obstacle and add in a new variable here called speed, and this is going to be a float, something like a value of 1 seems enough. For now let's just make it 3. Okay, and what we can do in here, we can add in an on update method. All right, and once we do that, in here what we can do, we can say transform, translate, and it should automatically get it. So transform translation, and we can give it only a translation, which is the vector 3, and we can select that. And for the transform we can say transform and well, I don't think okay, so you don't actually need to get the variable transform because this should automatically do it. Just providing this should automatically work. And for the translation, what we can do is we want it to move on the x-axis, negative x, and for this we can hit vector 3. We can use create vector 3 with only an x and a y. And yeah, this is kind of like a constructor, so you have to hook it up to the flow as well. And once you do that, what we can do is for the y we can leave it at 0, and for the x we can use you can if I just type speed, it should get our object variable automatically, speed, and we are going to get that variable. Then we are going to multiply this by you actually need to say something like multiply, and for this we are going to multiply this by a float literal. So just type float literal here, and this is going to be -1. All right, so the inverse, I don't know if you can actually say inverse. No, isn't that won't work. So anyways, this is going to work. This should actually cause it to move to the left. So let's just select our obstacle. We have got everything here, and let's go under our game and let's hit play and see if our obstacle starts to move towards the left. And let's see. And it's taking a little bit of time, it's kind of slow, the visual scripting system, but okay, it did work. You can see that it moved, but it was extremely fast, and that's because it was frame rate dependent. So for this, what we need to do is that we need to say multiplying here, we need to add in another multiply node here. And for this, the first value is going to be this, and for the second value we are going to say delta time. Okay, get delta time. Once I do that, so this should work and it should be like almost perfect. and let's see if it actually functions. And you can see that's working, and it comes towards us at the speed, and that's nice. But the problem that you should see is that if I hit play and let my player just stay here without actually jumping over the obstacle, and then what is going to happen is that the obstacle should actually push me. So let's see, the obstacle is coming and it pushes me, which is not what we want. We don't want the player to be pushed. So in order to fix that, it's really simple. Just select the player and make sure that its rigidity 2D in the constraints. Make sure that its rotation is freeze and its position on the x-axis is freeze. So now that should prevent our player from rotating or being pushed. Alright, so now we are going to add it so that our obstacle actually damages the player when the game is over and stuff like that. So for this, what I can do is I can first of all select my obstacle, and I'm going to just increase its speed to 5, I guess. And then what we can do is, well, we need to detect when it actually hits the player. So for this, we can add in a method inside the player class. So if I open up the class, the graph. So if I open up the player graph, you can see that this is what it looks like. I can go down here and right click and add in a, okay, it's collision enter. So just search on collision enter 2D. Alright, so once you have done that, you can see that this has got like a collider, a list of contacts, a relative velocity enable, and that a lot of stuff that we didn't get normally. So but what we can do here is that we can say, so let's just go destroy, and it's taking an object, and for the object we can just say this. Okay, we can't do that, I suppose. Just say this. Alright, now that should actually work, and let's just try it out. Okay, but this is not going to work very well because it's going to destroy it despite whatever it was. For the collider, we need to, basically what we can do is we can say compare tag, and here you can see that it gives us a boolean, and we can say if here. And for this, what we can do is we can add this in here, and then add the connect this up here. And what we can do is, for the tag we can say obstacle. And now what I'm going to do is make sure that there are no spaces. Now I'm going to go under game view, select obstacle, then I'm going to go under tag, and then I'm going to add a tag here, call it obstacle, and then save it. And then what I can do is select my obstacle and make sure that it's tagged as obstacle. Now once I play, what you should see is that our player destroys on contact with the obstacle. So I can jump, and once I contact, that destroys our player. So yeah, this is basically working. Alright, so now I think we need to create a system for spawning the obstacles at intervals. So for that, I think we can implement this in the player, that pretty easily. And in here, before we do any of this, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to right click here and add in a nesting and subgraph. This subgraph is I'm going to open it up, and then I'm going to for the title I'm going to say detect, no, not really detect, it's going to be spawn obstacle. And for we can provide it with a summary here. I'm not gonna do that for now because we don't really need it. I'm going to add two trigger inputs, a trigger input and an output here, the key of this being in and hide label, and then this being out and hide label as well. Hide label actually didn't work. So yeah, now we have got this. What I can do is I can take this and move this here, and what we can do here is that we can well, what we need to do is that we need to have a variable called time to detect what the current time is, and then we need to do this on that. So now what I'm going to do here is that before in the actual spawn obstacle graph, I'm going to add in a graph variable here called time. Just type time in the variable name and hit plus. Now add in this is going to be a float with the default value of 0. And what we need to do here is that we need to, well, we need to have an object variable as well, another object variable. Okay, let enter a variable name here, and this is going to be our spawn time, and this is going to be a float, and this is going to be something like let's just say 1 second, and that's going to be a bit too much, so you might want 1.5 seconds. We can change it later. It's an object variable. For the graph variable time, what we are going to do is we check if time Okay, not that. That time is actually greater than greater. We can just check if it is greater or equal than our spawn time. So for this, we are going to just say spawn time. All right, and remember this is just adding that variable nodes. And what we can do here is that if this is the case, which means that it is greater or equal, and we need to we need to spawn a new entity. But we can do new obstacle. We can say instantiate. Actually it's not working in uh, 10. Okay, let me just say, okay, component instantiate. We are going to use an original, then we are going to give it a position and a rotation. For this, what we are going to do is that we are going to have this as a as some variables. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to, for the position, we are going to have in a transform here to automatically detect the position. For the rotation, I'm just going to say you can just say identity quaternion get identity, and yeah, that's nice. And what we can do here is that we can, for the position, I'm going to just have two variables here, one in the on for object variables, and this is one is going to be the obstacle spawn transform transform, and yeah, that's nice. And this is just going to be a transform, come on, form. All right, and this is going to be it's currently nothing, and I'm going to add another variable here called obstacle. This is going to be the actual obstacle object, and this is going to move it to the top. You can do it really easily, and I'm just going to make it a game object. And what we are going to do in here is that for the original, we are going to have our obstacle object here. So I'm just going to say obstacle get obstacle, and then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to for the position, we actually don't need to do get identity here. We are just going to use the rotation of this transform. So I'm going to find the obstacle transform here, obstacle spawn transform, get obstacle spawn transform. It gives us well, it's giving us an object right now, and we are going to go ahead and say position. Okay, transform. Okay, so let's just say transform position, so that it actually gives us the position. I mean, that's kind of annoying. You have to kind of find stuff position, and yeah, get position. For that, we are going to plug this in the position, and for the rotation, what we are going to do is that we are just going to say get rotation. All right, and then we are going to plug this in here. Now after we have done instantiating, what we can do is we can output, but also if this is false, we also want to go to the output. So yeah, that's really nice, and this is actually should actually work. So let's go under our game and make sure that we have assigned the obstacle as well. For that, we are going to actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this obstacle and rename this to obstacle spawn point. Then what we are going to do is that we are going to make sure that you can see that it's currently there, and that's nice. And we are going to make sure that for the actual position, we have got this, and we are going to remove all of the other components because we do not need them. Okay, good machine depends on it, remove this as well. And then what we can do is that we can remove this component, the variables, and now we should have a obstacle spawn point, just nothing else. And what I can do is I can go under my player, and then for in the variables, what I can do is that I can drag this in the transform, and for that we are going to actually make a prefab out of this, and then we can drag the prefab in here. Now the obvious problem here is that we are never setting our time variable, which will cause it to not work. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go here and add in a set time node inside of our spawn obstacle graph before we do anything else. And I'm just going to drag it here, and for the value of this, we are going to say add, and then we are going to add it. And for the inputs, we are going to first use get time, so we are going to add this value to our time. And for this, what we are going to do is that we are going to say delta time. So the time, the delta time property, we are going to add that time get delta time. Alright, and if this is true, remember before we exit, we are going to say time, set time. We are just going to say set time, and we are going to set our time to be, well, we are going to add in a float literal here. We are going to set our time to be 0. So you know when we actually spawn the new object. So this should actually cause it to work. So let's try it out. So our player is now, let's see, so it's compiling, and now you can see that I can jump and it's working. And if I jump over this, you can see that more obstacles are spawning, and they are spawning at perfectly equal distances from each other, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not a good thing either. And if I actually hit one of these, then they should stop coming because our player is destroyed, so it can no longer add more obstacles. Alright, so now I think what we should do is first we are going to add a better spawning system. We are going to improve it and randomness in the next video. For this one, I think before we wrap this up, I'm going to add in a actual death screen instead of just destroying the player. So what we are going to do is we are going to right click on this, and I'm going to just create a UI, just an empty canvas here called death canvas. And what we are going to do here is just it should be pretty simple. I'm just going to add in a an empty object, not an empty, a UI image here, and then I'm going to make sure it's called background, and then I'm going to make it black but not completely, a little bit transparent, and then I'm going to make it cover the whole screen. And then what I'm going to do is right click here and add in a UI, a text mesh pro here. Just import text tmp essential so that it actually works, allows you to use the text mesh pro package. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it stretched on the center, then I'm going to make it center aligned, then I'm going to increase its position on the y to something like 100. Then I'm going to change it back to game over, and then I'm going to make it red, and then I'm going to make it bold, and you might want to have auto size here, so something like that. Increase it, not that much really. That seems pretty awesome. I'm also going to underline it, and then what I'm going to do is add in a button here for restarting the game. So I'm going to add in a button called restart. Alright, and with the text in here, I'm just going to say restart, or something like play again. And then I'm going to make sure it's set to auto size and no max limit. And then we are going to go under our restart button. I'm going to decrease its position of the y a bit, increase its height a bit, right a bit, and then I'm going to increase its width a little bit as well. And then I'm going to go here and add in a little bit of padding on all sides. And then what I can do is I can increase its width and height further so that it's really nice. And then what we can do is well, we can actually, when we actually click this, we need to register an event. Now in settings, we can't actually use this click method here, but there's a better way to do it through visual scripting. Just add in a script machine to this object, the actual button object. And for the source, I'm just going to make it an embedded graph. For the title, I'm just going to say restart button. Alright, and then you can click on edit graph to just edit it directly. And in here we do not need on start or on update. We are just going to close these as well. What we need is an on click method, and on button click we have got this. Now once I do that, this event, what we can do is that we can, well, we can restart the game. So we are going to go scene, we are going to just say load scene. We need to give it a build index, which is an integer. Alright, and for the build index we are going to say get current scene, okay, and get active scene. Actually do it without it, and say get active scene, because it was trying to get only integers. And now when I do it here, it should actually work. And once we do that, actually this requires to be plugged up for some reason. I kind of hate this. So once you have done that, what we can do here is that we can say get scene, and then for this we can say build index, and then we can use this build index to load the scene. So now it should actually work, and of course we need to only display it when it is the correct time. So I'm going to disable that, open up my player script, edit graph,